ladies, I'm Charlotte from TopVintage, and today we have a very special guest visiting our headquarters. We have Ella over here, who is also known as Miss Victory Violet.
Hi.
Hi Ella,
Hi.
welcome up to Vintage. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
We have a lot of questions for you because we want to know all about you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's get started then. When did you start blogging and when did you realize you're so good at it?
So I started my blog January 1st, 2014. It was my New Year's resolution. I don't know if I have realised that I was so good at it. I mean, I just have kept doing what I like to do with it. I keep kind of just talking about subjects that I love. Some things don't perform perhaps as well as other things, but I'll still keep doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like to just do what makes me excited. And I guess, you know, you learn things along the way, so I've definitely got better, especially in terms of the sort of logistics behind actual blogging, like all of the systems that can come into place and whatnot. So, yeah.
When did you realize that the vintage scene fits you so well?
Well, that probably would have been when I found all of the pin-up reproduction companies. I think I'd always sort of gravitated towards the silhouette of, you know, like the 1940s, 1950s styling. But until I found the reproduction styles, I didn't kind of realise that I could dress like this every day. I never had much success in vintage shops back in New Zealand. So being able to buy something new that has that vintage silhouette really appealed to me. And then when I did my first order about 5 or 6 years ago from Pin-Up Girl Clothing, and I put it on and I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. It fits me so well. I felt just all of a sudden I felt so comfortable with my body, which had been something I'd struggled with so much. I felt like it suited me. I was, you know, I sort of was doing my own thing, but still feeling 100% comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of just been one of those things where I have not looked back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's just too much fun to like do anything else.
Yeah, I know. Jessica, I would like to know, how did you find your confidence? You're such an inspiration for her.
Confidence has come slowly. If some of my long-term followers will have known about like my past like, history with like eating disorders and just like, you know, hating on my body and myself, and just, you know, you get into that cycle where you just can't see past anything but what you look like, how much you hate yourself, and it's all consuming. And so I started finally kind of getting myself out of that about 6 months before I found like the pin-up clothing. So the pin-up clothing was sort of what really got me like sort of from 50% okay with myself to kind of 100%. But there's still days when, you know, like I'm kind of like, oh, you know, I just feel a bit like yuck, or, you know, and those are the days when I know I haven't been treating my body right. Like maybe I haven't been feeding it the best food, or I haven't gone for like a walk in ages. I do find like my confidence in terms of how I feel about my body relates to how well I'm treating it. But the clothing always, I can put on, and if I'm having a bit of a blah day and I put on an outfit and do my hair and do my makeup, all of a sudden I'm just like, oh yeah, okay. Well, everything's fine again, you know what I mean? Yeah.
You moved from New Zealand to London recently. Did you note any differences in the vintage scene?
Yes. Well, I think the main difference is just that it's just so much bigger. There are so many London-based clothing companies. There's, you know, amazing vintage stores, and of course in just like not necessarily London but the Greater England, there are tons of festivals that happen like what seem like almost every weekend, you know, for the entire summer period, which is pretty amazing because in New Zealand we have some really good you know, sort of days and you know, 1 or 2 sort of good festivals, but there's just not that kind of concentration of them. And the scene it's growing, and it's a really nice scene over there. It's really close knit, and But yeah, it's just so much bigger over in London. And I went to the mid-century market on the weekend, and that was really fun because it was like there's just so much good stuff everywhere.
Do you have that in New Zealand?
Well, we do have really good stores, but to have so much good true vintage in one place was pretty special because like there was dead stock jewellery and amazing vintage dresses and things like that, which you just don't kind of get that kind of vintage in New Zealand.
Yeah. It's more concentrated also. Maybe.
Yeah. In New Zealand, the vintage it's a lot harder to find mid-century because there just wasn't the money or the mass production of in the 50s and things like that in New Zealand at that time. Whereas over here, of course, there's just a lot more of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear. I recently worked with Miss Candy Floss for the new collection. Can you tell something about that, about the designs?
Yeah. Well, the new collection with Miss Candy Floss is part of their Liberian collection for autumn-winter. So that was really exciting because, it just sort of already I was thinking about plaids and tartans and, kind of rich autumn sort of colours. Yeah. So initially what happened was Miss Candy Floss kind of gave me that brief. They sent me over some samples of the fabrics that were available for the collection. So I kind of had a look through those, and then I just started, searching through the internet for inspiration. I looked at a lot of vintage patterns mainly, because I wanted it to have that real true vintage kind of vibe. But also I'm not a fashion designer, so I had to have some sort of starting point. So I saved a whole bunch of patterns that I think would work really well with the fabrics and with the sort of the look of the collection, and then I drew some very childlike sketches with little notes and kind of changing the design around a little bit, kind of working out which fabric I wanted. I really, really wanted my kind of key things that I wanted was buttons, contrast between patterns and block colours, matching belts, and slightly longer kind of hemlines. So that was sort of what I focused on, and I'm really happy with what they came up with, and I was very surprised that from my very childlike drawings it became almost exactly the same. They really translated the dress really, really well.
It looks really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice. Are you also able to pick your own colours?
Yes. So there was quite a few different colours to choose from the sample fabrics. And I actually sent through, I think, about 6 or 7 different designs to the team at Miss Candy Floss, because I figured they'll probably want to pick, they can kind of pick out 2 of their kind of favourites, because I sort of was just a bit overwhelmed with, once I started getting the ideas flowing, I had a lot of ideas. But I really enjoyed kind of picking the base colour with a matching kind of contrasting plaid or tartan. There were some really beautiful different options, so that was probably the most fun part.
Well, Miss Deli would like to know, would you consider designing and producing your own line for men and women?
I have sort of toyed with the idea a little bit. I think right now that seems like a lot of work that I don't know if I would have the time to dedicate to. But I guess sometimes I think about, in the next few years, perhaps that might be something that I want to try, but it would definitely need to be a collaboration with someone else, or, go into business with someone who can, you can bounce ideas off and it's not all up to me, because I think that would stress me out a little bit.
Or maybe they can, they can do the technical part and you can do the drawing and the creative parts. Yeah. Okay. Well, Bailey Siamese wanted to ask you, who inspires you? Because fashion is all about inspiration.
I get really inspired by just being part of, on Facebook and Instagram, you kind of a part of groups where, everyone shares their style, or on Instagram, you search through the tags for different companies, or through just pin-up style or vintage style, and you see how someone's paired different things with a certain look, and that's quite inspiring. I really love, when a company, like a vintage reproduction company, put together a very creative lookbook, because it does sort of go, okay, maybe that is how I could style it, as opposed to just being, the real stock standard sort of pictures. But also, I guess, I take a lot of, as I get more into the 1940s kind of styling, which isn't as prevalent in the sort of reproduction world, I do look at a lot of vintage photographs, models like Jovima and sort of women like that really they had a real presence to them, and the accessories were just perfect. I love accessories, so like hats and gloves and matching belts and bags and all that stuff I really, really love. So, but yeah, one of my very early inspirations was like Dita Von Teese, Doris Mayday, and I love like some of the old Hollywood starlets like Rita Hayworth, Doris Day,
Well, you were talking about 1940s, but do you like the 1940s better than the 1950s when it comes to style? Or I
don't know. I love them both in their different ways. Like, I think 1950s is an easier style for me to just sort of do day to day, because I love a good circle skirt or a gathered skirt, that fullness. I love that sort of. I think 1950s, you can kind of play with colours a bit more. You can go a little bit more kind of clashy, or you can go really bright. Whereas the 40s, I do a lot more, I guess, in the winter, because I love those autumn tones, or the darker colours, and matching it with tans and brown accessories. So I like them both for different reasons. I think when I'm feeling like I want to be quite sophisticated and mature but still very elegant, then I kind of go for the 40s. But if I'm just kind of feeling fun and it's sunny outside and I just want to be like, just feel really kind of bubbly and excited about life, then I'll wear 50s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beauty Journal by Anne would like to know how long does it take to look this gorgeous?
It depends. If I'm doing a photo shoot, then I'll usually allow, I guess, an hour and a half to 2 hours for hair and makeup, just because I'm usually like adding a few more steps, or I'm being a bit more particular with how perfect I want everything to look. For day-to-day kind of stuff, it sort of depends on my hairstyle, to be honest, because makeup, it's usually pretty standard. That takes me about half an hour, and then hair will take me between 20 to 30 minutes, I guess, depending on what I'm doing, sometimes even less.
Including
well, curling, I guess I'm sort of thinking most of the time I do my curling at night, or I've sort of I've done that already, so all I have to do in my routine with getting ready is just take the curlers out and brush it out, or do some sort of style. Yeah, so to put rollers in, I'd probably do about 15 minutes, but again, that's at night, and then dressing it out or something like that is between 15 to 30 minutes the next day. Yeah. And then there's a few quick styles, like victory rolls are quite quick for me, or doing like a bun like you've got, that's kind of one of my go-tos when I just really can't be bothered.
Well, the next question is from Juliette Nicole, and she would like to know what your all-time favorite outfit is to wear.
That's really hard. I think I'd have to pick one of my like true vintage dresses. There's two that are coming to mind. One is a pink prom dress that I bought in New Orleans, which was originally, like when I bought it, it was like a kind of an off-white, kind of a bit dirty looking, and it looked beautiful, but I was like, I'm going to have to clean this a lot. And when I got home back to New Zealand, I soaked it 3 times, and it came up so amazingly. Wow. I was like, whoa, like, what is this gem that I've stumbled upon? And it fits me really beautifully, and I just feel like a total princess in that. And then I have another true vintage dress that I bought from a local seller back in New Zealand, and that was a blue one with little tiny kind of black bows on it. Wow. And again, like that just makes, it's kind of a slightly longer T-length and makes me feel very princessy. So probably one of those. I don't know if I can pick this one.
Well, do you have any like tips and tricks for buying true vintage?
I'm still kind of learning. I've only really just gotten into buying true vintage in the last sort of, maybe since like a year ago, not even that. My tips would definitely be like knowing your measurements, really like perfecting, like you've got your actual measurements, like don't kind of guess it. Definitely, if say you're like, I'm a 37-inch bust, like probably safer for me to buy something that says it's for a 38, just because you want that little bit extra, you know, for movement. I think with vintage reproduction companies, they're sort of saying, you know, this is for a 36-inch bust, but they might have more stretch than what a vintage piece does. So I think you do have to kind of go up a little bit more maybe with true vintage, and just sort of keeping like kind of trawling through Etsy, like just keeping an eye out for things. You might just stumble across something amazing, or it might take you weeks to find something. Yeah.
Do you buy much online for true vintage?
Yeah, I do. Especially since like being in New Zealand, like there's just not that much around from the 50s kind of era. So a lot of my true vintage has come from online, and that's been mainly through Etsy, or there's a really awesome Facebook group called Ooh La La Vintage Swap Sale, and that has like 20,000 members from all over the world, and if you see something you like and it pops up, you've got to jump on it because it'll be gone within like minutes.
Okay.
So yeah.
I have to try it then.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your bank account.
Okay. I'm sorry too.
Yeah.
What's your biggest fashion failure?
There's probably been quite a few, but thinking back to kind of my biggest fashion failure as a, you know, vintage wearing person, I think I probably cut my beady bangs way too short sometimes, and that was because I was, you know, cutting them myself, and I felt like they would lose their shape really quickly, so every week I would just take a little bit off, but they ended up coming up really short, and it was a little bit Spock from Star Trek. So that probably would be my fashion failure, but I guess there's been some things that I look back on as well, and I go, oh, like, I probably wouldn't wear that now. But I think that's a nice thing about like the pin-up stuff, is that it's all really unique and it's all really kind of a little bit out there anyway. So if you do something a little bit kooky and crazy that potentially shouldn't have happened, it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which item should every starting pin-up have in their closet?
I think it depends on if you're like a classic pin-up or a rockabilly pin-up, but for me, as a sort of, I like the pretty, I like the full swing sort of stuff, I would say, you know, you definitely want just a good swing skirt, I guess black, but black's kind of boring, or like like just petticoats. I'm all about the petticoats.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like you've got to have a petticoat under a swing skirt, but that's just my preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like it better with a bit of petticoat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't used to. It took me a long time to get used to it, but like now I just feel naked without one.
How do you drive with a petticoat?
Just sort of
Flop it inside.
Yeah. It's more awkward on the airplane because you're sort of tucking it all in, but yeah.
So our last question is, who do you want to inspire?
I just like to inspire anyone who perhaps doesn't feel like they fit in, or that they hate, you know, the way that they look. Just anyone who feels like they deserve more than how they feel about themselves, because I've been through that, and no one deserves to feel like that about themselves. Everyone deserves to feel like they can love themselves and their body and the way that they look. And of course, pin-up isn't going to be like the solution for everyone, but I do know so many of my friends have just found it so liberating to wear something like this that does suit, you know, someone who is a bit more fuller figured or who has a bit more shape than just like the standard kind of size 8 to 10. But then I also know women who are that size standard 8 to 10 and they rock it too. So it is a style that works with so many different shapes and sizes. So I just want to kind of show people that you can dress like this, and it's, you know, you're not going to get like yelled at by strangers, and it's not too scary, and it can be really, really liberating.
It's for every shape.
Yes.
Styles for every shape.
Yes, definitely.
Well, that was my last question. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll see more of you here at TopVintage.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.